Hello, my name is Lucas. This is a bit of Blick. I'm here to talk about my January wrap-up with statistics, thanks to the power of my iPad that I've been using to try and use it to its fullest extent. I made a little spreadsheet that counts everything I want it to as far as I know. There are some other things I could make little charts for and calculations for that I'm a little bit too lazy to do now that I've put so much work into it, and it does what I want. But I'm quite happy with it. Anyway, let's get to looking at it. It is an imperfect system. We will talk about that. But I read 21 books, as we can see here. Maybe it's a little hard to see, but 21 books. The brown counts for men, and the maroon is for women, and I have two more. One is for LGBTQIA plus people, authors, and this month I did not read anything that was by someone who is transgender or intersex or anything like that. Definitely should be getting on that this year for sure. And then I have another category. Here we go. I'll just leave it like that. Another category for mixed, and that is if I read, for example, a newspaper or a magazine or something, which will have a lot of different input from different people. And if I were to count each of them, it would have not only heavily skew this, but make this almost unreadable. If I just counted, I read this article by this person, add another one, because as you can see, I've got a total at the end to count all together what I read and from what continent. I've got a little chart table down below. Largely I read 13 men, largely from North America, all from the States. A few of them were from Europe, one from Asia, one from South America. I keep track of what continent they're from, but this is again imperfect. And 8 women, 5 from North America, 2 from Asia, and 1 from Europe. And it's imperfect because one of the authors lives and writes, lives in America, writes in English, but they are from China, and they lived there for quite a while, and then they moved to America, and I wasn't really sure where should I put them, so I just put them from their country of origin, because that would have an impact on their worldview in a way. So it's an imperfect system. It doesn't necessarily, this spreadsheet does not account for that. Should I count her as from North America because she published in North America? I don't know. Let's look at what was read for this month. As you saw here, no love for Australia or Africa as far as those continents go, or countries in Africa or countries in and around Australia go. And South America, not a lot of love. Asia, not a lot. Europe, not a lot. Mostly Americans, but hoping to fix that. Let's look at the breakdown here. We've got 10 novels, no poems, no poetry, 2 children's books, which are like chapter books, usually about 50 pages, that are sort of mini novelette, novella, novel things to build reading skills for children. 5 picture books, which would also be children's books, but they're, they have picture books. They have pictures in the book, like Clifford or Dr. Seuss or whatever. Read those in my class. 3 comic books and 1 nonfiction book. And so that's cool. I've got this little breakdown here, a little pie chart. We'll talk about those books. Actually, if you've been keeping up with the channel, I have reviewed everything I've read thus far. I don't know if I would review magazines that I would read. Again, this is another thing that is imperfect, but we here, the blue and red are for books that are readable and books that are unreadable. Anything red is unreadable. Anything blue was readable. 71% of the books I read, readable and worth my time. And 29% unreadable in a way. But there are some books that I read that I enjoyed reading them, or there were things that I liked about them. Maybe I'm a little bit mixed on them. But ultimately, would I read them again? Probably not. Am I upset that I read them? No. And then, this other one is for, are they white or are they a person of color? And it's an okay balance. Could be better. 5 people of color and 16 white people that I read. Could be better. Anyway, coming from South America, I read first 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, which was published in 1996. Absolutely worth reading. Although this was one where I was on the fence. Would I read it again? I don't know, but I did enjoy it so much and think that it's worth reading. And I would recommend it to other people. So in this case, for myself, maybe I wouldn't read that book again, but I would recommend it to others. So I put it as yes. Didn't read anything from the Australian continent or African continent. Asia, Liu Cixin's The Supernova Era, published in 2004. Horrible propaganda. Don't read that book. And then I read a book in Chinese, The Chinese Zodiac, written by Carol Chen, and some drawings by Anita Dai, I think is what this is saying. Didn't do a review because it'd be very difficult for me. Was very hard to read the book in another language. I knew most of the words, but sometimes I was a little confused. So that was fun to read. I liked that. Ian Lee's Where Reasons End, published in 2019. It had potential, but there were some things I didn't like about it, so I wouldn't read it again, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend it unless you want to read something exploring grief from a mother's perspective of the worst imaginable thing. Then I read House of Many Ways by Diana Wynne Jones, which is absolutely charming. Yes, I recommend it. I would read it. Published in 2008. One of her last books, unfortunately. I've only read 2 of them, but she's really fantastic. I like her a lot. And then I read Fyodor Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, published in 1866, which was great. But again, would I read it again? I don't think I would. This would be a no for me personally, but I would recommend it to other people because it does have a lot of interesting things to consider and think about. Maybe I would read it again in a very, very, very long time. I read 2 comics by Neil Gaiman, Preludes and Nocturnes, and The Doll's House, the first 2 parts of The Sandman, which were great fun, though Dream seems a little overpowered and it kind of ruins any tension, I feel, in the late 80s, early 90s as it was being published. Good fun, would recommend, especially for the Corinthian until he's dealt with handily, then it's kind of boring. Okay, the first book I actually read this month, Kurt Vonnegut's Mother Night. It's not really worth reading in my opinion. The messages in it and the themes and stuff are really worth reading. I would recommend it if someone is a fan of dude bro lit science fiction or Kurt Vonnegut in general, and they haven't, or they want to read something like that about what happens when you pretend to be something for so long. What are the repercussions of that? Definitely worth a book, worth reading in that respect, but I don't really like Kurt Vonnegut personally. Published in 1961. Mo Willems, The Pigeon Finds a Hot Dog. Hilarious book. Worth reading, absolutely. Read it with my students. Very good fun. The Astronaut Who Painted the Moon by Dean Robbins, 2019. Another picture book about an astronaut that painted what he saw. I think it was interesting, good fun. Read it with my students again. Norman Bridwell, Clifford Goes to Washington. Absolutely hilarious. Again, read it with my students. Would read. Harlan Ellison's comic, actually. The City on the Edge of Forever. Sort of adapted by some other people, but it's based on his work, so I named him as the author. That came out in 2015 or 14 or something. Yeah, it was good fun. Maybe I wouldn't actually recommend it unless you're a big fan of Star Wars, or Star Trek. Oh my gosh, that's embarrassing. Brian Pinkney's Cosmo the Robot in 2000. Yes, good fun. Robot, young boy, space, Mars, family value, getting along with your sister. It's cool, but it has a lot of technobabble, and I don't like that. But other than that, it's pretty. And the robot is scared of shadows, which I think is weird. I don't really like that, but good fun otherwise. E.B. White's Stuart Little. Yeah, I like that book. It's cool. I'd recommend it. John Sieska's Time Warp Trio, Tut Tut, 1996. Stuart Little, 1945. Cosmo the Robot, 2000. Tut Tut, 1996. Really funny. Reading with my students now, they don't really like it, so that makes class quite difficult, but that's okay. Vivian Gornick's The Romance of American Communism, 1977. Yeah, it was worth reading. That was a really excellent book. I love it. There's another thing. I don't know. She is Jewish. I don't know if Jewish people count as people of color. Maybe I read another... Again, a flaw with the system. Do I need to be focusing on these kind of minor things? I don't know. But if so, then I guess it was 6 to 15, not 5 to 16. But The Romance of American Communism is an excellent book. Ali Benjamin's The Smash Up that comes... The Romance of American Communism was republished last year in 2020, but originally published in 1977. Smash Up published this year, actually, in a couple weeks, February 23rd, but I read it early. And it's good fun. Another one where I'm a little mixed on would I recommend it. Depends on if you want to read a book with modern politics and you don't want to escape from that. I read Joyce Carol Oates' Zombie, published in 1995. I wouldn't recommend it. It's really graphic. It is kind of interesting in its own way, but maybe it's not her best work. It's okay. I don't know. It's the first one I've read in a long time by her. So, and then I read Wounds, Book 1 and 2 by Lisa J. Blick, which was part of a series in the early 2000s for Star Trek. And I enjoyed reading them, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend people go out searching for them. There's almost 900 Star Trek books. You can search which ones you think might interest you. It involves some doctors from Deep Space Nine. And I didn't know the characters, so it was a little hard for me. Who are these people? I did remember one, because he wanted to be on the frontier, and I just remember the woman whose planet is near Deep Space Nine really not liking him, and rightfully so. Anyway, I enjoyed it. all right. And I did go through those quickly. Maybe next, when I do February wrap-up, the February wrap-up, I will, talk more individually about each of the books instead of saying, oh yeah, I read that. It was published this year, worth reading. But I spent a lot of time explaining my spreadsheet and its flaws. So next time I will do one for February, and we will see if ideally I would like the male to female balance to be 50-50, and I would like the red and blue one to be 99-1 in favor of readable, and the green and peach one about personal color to white, that I feel like it should be 50-50 too. Shouldn't be difficult, but we'll see. I want it to be better than 76 to 24%. But anyway, that is my reading wrap-up for January. It'll be a little more in-depth for February, but again, I was explaining everything. So take care.